So this was my first time growing sweet potatoes, and it was definitely a learning experience. I took a very low maintenance, almost neglectful approach to doing so, and I'm actually quite happy with my results. So if that sounds like your speed, keep watching, and by all means, if you have recommendations or pointers, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Using my seed or parent sweet potato to create slips, I put drainage holes in a tin pan and filled it with potting soil and then moistened it with boiling water. This isn't completely necessary. I just wanted to make sure it was sterile before bringing it indoors. You're going to want the soil to be moist but not oversaturated. It should clump together nicely but only drip a little bit. Make sure your parent sweet potato has good contact with the soil. I nestled mine in very firmly and then made sure they were covered about halfway up. I then placed my sweet potatoes on a heating mat indoors and I waited for them to sprout. After your slips sprout, and they're about 4 to 6 inches long. Okay, so don't be like me. You should separate the sweet potato stems when they're about 6 inches, not like this. Which I clearly neglected, and mine were much longer, but it was okay. You're gonna wanna remove them from the potato seed gently and put them in some water so they can further develop their roots before transplanting them to your garden. The root development process, where I pat them in water in a sunny window, was really just a matter of days. It did not take long at all. Okay, so quick recap. We started our sweet potatoes in soil. They grew slips. We removed the slips and put them into water where they rooted. Here are the roots. And now we are ready to transplant them into the garden bed. Let's go. A few considerations you want to keep in mind when planting out your sweet potatoes is to make sure you're past your last frost date, because frost will kill your plant. They really do like a warmer soil, so 60 degrees plus. That means the actual temperature outside needs to be in the higher range, 65 to 95, even 100 degrees. Because I've never done this as my default, whenever I'm doing a project I've never done, I just default to square foot gardening. And then, you know, after I try that a season, that's when as I get a little more bold and I'm willing to throw the rules out. Conventional practices say you should plant your slips 12 to 18 inches apart in 3 feet rows. Like I said, when I don't know what I'm doing or I'm new to something, I always default to square foot gardening. And I looked it up. If you do want to do square foot gardening, it's 1 slip per square foot. And I'm counting this as 1, even though it's probably not. This one has a bunch, but it's 1 major stem and then it has others coming off of it. So I'm just going to leave it how it is. So intuitively, of course, I want to cover all the roots. I'm going to plant it to about, I'm going to remove some of these bottom leaves like this, like that. And I'm going to plant up to here. So I'm planting them deep. This one would have been a problem had I just done it at the 4 to 6 inches as advised, but I didn't. So here we are. But yeah, I can tell more roots are going to come out of these nodes. Just going to plant it, you know, cover it, and then let these stick out. Might have to do, it seems like it'll be okay laterally, kind of like you can do tomatoes. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them in lateral. We're going to call this intuitive gardening. A low nitrogen but high potassium fertilizer is really what's ideal for sweet potatoes. If you over fertilize or if you use too much nitrogen, you're going to have very lush vines, but you'll have fewer or smaller tubers. So after you transplant your slips into the ground, it's going to be about 90 to 120 days before your plant reaches maturity and you're ready to harvest. When it comes to watering, you really want to aim for about 1 inch of water per week, which ensures that the soil remains moist but it isn't waterlogged. I'm sure it doesn't look like much now, but we'll check back. We'll check back in a couple weeks and I'll give you guys an update on how it's progressing. So I've been anticipating this for quite a while. You know, we planted these sweet potatoes several months ago, and I'm starting to see that they are rising above the soil line. While the vines are still just now starting to die back, I'm going to go ahead and pull them anyways, even though they probably could go a couple more weeks. Now is as good a time as any, so let's just go ahead and get it done. I might be getting smaller tubers than I would if I would wait, but I think it's probably best. So what you're going to look for before you harvest is that your plant is actually starting to die back. The leaves are going to start to yellow, and in my case, I actually started to see tubers popping up from the ground. Oh, my first one. Okay. That looks good. I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I was right. They were turning above the soil. Where it was showing above the soil, it's starting to turn green. Like potatoes, you can't eat that part. So I wanted to go ahead and harvest them since they were starting to show above the soil. Oh, I'm breaking them. Okay. These are pretty good. These are good sized tubers. Try to... Look at that. I keep breaking them. I try not to break them, but look at that sweet potato. Okay, I'm proud of me. This is good.
So after you harvest your sweet potatoes, you are not finished. You absolutely have to cure them. It is a critical step that impacts the flavor, the texture, and the shelf life of your crop. Sweet potatoes out of the ground actually aren't very sweet. It's the curing process that does that. By curing them in a high heat, high humidity environment for about 2 weeks, it allows for the starches to break down and turn into simple sugars.
This was a win. Highlight of my year. This is awesome. Okay, so I just decided to... My garage is plenty hot, and they've been out there for about a week, and they're definitely are curing over. They're scabbing over, so that's great. I think it's working. I could totally just leave them in my garage to continue to cure. It's very humid and hot in there, but I just want to ensure that it's successful. So I'm kind of just dusting them off, and I'm going to put them in to this, well, it's actually an old drawer, but this plastic, using it as a container, and I'm going to cover it.
To cure them, you're going to want to create a high humidity and high heat environment. We're talking like 85 to 90% humidity with high temperatures in the 85 to 90 degrees. This is what's necessary to thicken the skins and create a protective barrier, which helps to prevent decay and extend storage life. Alternatively, you can create a similar environment by storing your sweet potatoes in a plastic storage container in a warm spot like your car or outside, with the lid ventilated so air can circulate and they don't rot. The curing process takes about 2 weeks. Once complete, you're going to want to store them in a cool, dark place, 55 to 60 degrees, well ventilated, and you'll have sweet potatoes well into the new year. I really enjoyed the process of learning how to grow sweet potatoes from start to finish, starting with the slips all the way to curing. It's really eye-opening because it is a 4 to 6 month commitment, and you really don't think about that when you're just picking up your produce in the grocery store. As always, I love all the conversations we have in the comments. If you have any tips or tricks that you want to share on how to grow sweet potatoes, what I could do differently, please let me know. And if this was helpful, please like and subscribe so we can grow, harvest, and heal together.